What's up, guys? Welcome back to Connect with Christina, and definitely stay tuned because we have some really good information that's mind-blowing. And today's guest is, well, he's Dr. Jesse Fox to me, but Jesse Fox, Vice President of
Astria Studios.
There you go. But again, still a doctor, Dr. Jesse Fox. So how are you going to help us with taxes and being in movies?
I'd love to share more about how we do things at Astria Studios. What
is it first?
Would you like me to start off with just a little story, like background?
Yeah,
my background would
please.
Be something would be good. Okay,
Yeah.
So as you shared and alluded to, I am a doctor. I'm a chiropractor by trade. I've been in the industry for 11 years. I've known you previously with that working in personal injury is one of the things that I did before. And the film industry was such a unique thing for me to get into. It all started off with a friend of mine reaching out to me almost 3 years ago, and they wanted to know if I wanted to use my clinic for a short film. And the funny thing is, about 20 plus years ago, I was involved as an extra in a project. That's my only film experience.
I've seen it.
So I'm not someone who specifically, had a dream or goal of being in Hollywood and working with that stuff. But as you know, sometimes, life takes an strange turn, and I think it's just rolling with the punches with going with that. But with me, what I did is I started off just acting and in short films and small projects, local stuff. And I think very early on, it was probably about 2 months in, I realized that if I had a passion for this that I was growing and developing, and realized that there was a missing part of my life that was fulfilled with film and working with people. And I remember specifically having a conversation with my wife saying, I want to see if I can make this a career. And she supported me. And she was one of those people who said, if you think you can do this, then do it. And only a short period after that, I actually was able to retire as a chiropractor. I don't have even.
It happened so fast. Yeah. Also, we love Stephanie.
Yep.
Stephanie Fox.
And absolutely, she's fantastic, and she's such a support. And I think that's the big thing. And I know, just a little back to you, Christina. I know you and your husband, Kevin, are so supportive. And I think that in any relationship, it's super important to have that relationship where you're supportive of your spouse and their dreams and their goals they have. So I started doing this, but I realized really quickly that I was not going to make a career as an actor. As much as I think that I have good looks, I am not going to be the 1 in a million Pedro Pascals who make a career in their 40s. So I realized that very quickly and realized that I loved it, but what I loved and found out more I was better at was the business side. And I had a passion for writing and a passion for producing. And with that, I had a goal of producing and writing my own feature film, which was my first idea came from, growing up on Indian reservation, as I did. I wanted to write a horror film about a specific creature called a Wendigo. And that was a creature that I grew up hearing stories about in my youth. And I thought it would be kind of cool to have a modern take on this. So I started working on this. I happened to have, some great connections, one of which you were actually part of. And this was a long time ago when I did a short film and a project that you introduced me to Jim Ferguson, which is your husband Kevin's is
Grandpa Jim.
Grandpa Jim, who passed away in January.
Yeah. One of the best people you can ever meet.
And he was a wonderful person. And I think that with meeting with him and kind of I remember when we had that breakfast meeting with him. And I remember when he asked to see my short film, and I'm sitting there like, this is a guy who looks at feature films and evaluates them and talks about and rates them. And here I am sharing my $1,000 short film production with this guy. But with that there, I kind of think that began the journey of believing that I could do this. And the funny thing is a short period later, I was talking about this project to a friend of mine, and we happened to be getting headshots. And as we were doing that, I was sharing with him the story about what I was working on at the time, and some of the frustrations and some of the things there, and trying to learn in this industry where I didn't have a mentor. I didn't know how to do it. I was basically trying to learn on my own. And he happened to, as luck would have it, he went to a wedding the next day. And he happened to sit by my current partner, Kevin Lee. And so when he sat down by him, Kevin is one of those guys who just talks to everyone. And he's very, easy to talk to, chatted with my friend Matt. And Matt told him about me. And it was through that relationship there that we started having a connection. And I think that's one thing that you know,
It's all by design.
it is. And I think that often is so many stories take place with random connections. And I think one thing that I always like to say is, you know, life is a series of near misses. And too often, if we turn one way or say no or don't take an advantage of an opportunity, there's so much potential that we walk away from, and we never know unless we try. And so it was because of that experience and that opportunity that I had, that I was working with Kevin, we came up with this concept of starting Astria Studios. And so we originally wanted to do 2 films back to back. The first one was a film that he brought to the table, which was a film about a creature called a dog man. This film is right now in pre-production. It is, I won't give much information about it, but it's this creature that is called a dog man. It's kind of like a werewolf, and it's basically a cryptid. So if you want to look online on YouTube, you can see there's been literally tens of thousands of people who've had firsthand encounters with this creature over the last several decades. And so
you heard it here first.
we took a lot of the storyline that we saw from other stuff, and we put it into a conglomerate, into one story with one family. And I think the idea that we wanted to do with this process was to make Hollywood, going back to the idea of what made Hollywood so great from our youth. Well, the movies that we loved, why do we not make movies like that again? Why is there so much, pushing agendas? Why is there so much that we're trying to do this, and this when it was about story? And I think too often we see, especially with the rise of budgets and increased amount of money that goes into, CGI and these films, bloated budgets of $200-300 million for production, they're missing out on story. Mm-hmm. And so our game plan and goal was to develop projects that we can make on a lower budget, but we could tell a great story that people can relate to. And I think a good comparison that we try in this genre is a movie that many of you may have watched before, which is called A Quiet Place. And A Quiet Place was a fantastic
You've seen it, right,
story.
Justin?
Mm-hmm. And the cool thing about this was The Quiet Place is not just about the story, it focuses on family. And every one of us can relate to the people involved, whether it's the husband who is trying their hardest to take care of their family as they're suffering through this world, which is rapidly changing with the invasion that happened, or with the mom who's pregnant, all these different things that happened with they lost a child together, people who've lost loved ones in their life. You can relate to that part of the story. So our game plan was to develop stories where we can relate to the characters, and the creatures that we were developing and building are kind of a side piece of that. And so we really felt we had something going here, and we were working with my partner's connections that he had. He had a lot of people he's worked with, and every major studio that we've worked with, he's had a career that's about 16 years in Hollywood. So he knows a lot of people there. And so as we were developing these things, the question came is like, okay, now we need to find funding and money. Luckily, I had a really close friend, and a friend of mine who has worked with me on other projects in the past, and I actually helped to get his business started. He owns a company that does window replacement, and they've been open since I think they began right after the pandemic began. So it was a crazy time to start, 2020, and today they have 26 locations across like 18 states.
Wow!
And his company, I think they have a recent valuation over $300 million. So it's really grown and blown up. And he basically told me, he said, listen, because of what you did and assisted me, anytime you have a project or business idea, I want to be the first person to hear it. And so I remember I was kind of talking to him about this, and I'd been doing short films and other stuff for several months, but I didn't talk to him yet because I wanted to wait until I knew I had something that would be like, hey, we have something here for you. And as we developed these projects, we kind of saw the game plan and the goal of what we wanted to do. I knew we were ready. So we put a pitch deck together. We flew out to Utah, where he's from. And as we were waiting the day before, we're getting to our hotel, I get a call. And he said, would it be okay if I have you come tomorrow and meet me, not at my office, but at my CPA's office? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. That sounds great. And I was chatting with him a little bit, and he was like, yeah, I just funded a film a month ago. This was January of 2024. And I was like, I'm like, cool, that's awesome. I mean, tell me about it. And he's like, yeah, I put $1 million in, and I saved about 1.7 million on my taxes. And I said, that doesn't make any sense. How does that work, right? This is crazy. But he's like, yeah, this is.
Wait, there you go. How does this work? And this is crazy. Exactly. We're going to figure that out.
And so, yeah, and that's what I'll share in a second to get to that. I think it's kind of getting the backstory is always good, but then going into the meat of this is fantastic. But I remember with him, and then this is the question that rocked my mind though, that his answer. I said, "What is the movie about?" And he said, "I don't know."
Wow.
And I said, "You put $1 million into a movie and you don't know what it's about." He's like, "No, my accountant told me to do it." And so that started the journey that we're on today. And with my partner, with what he's been able to develop and the relationships he have, and we're able to meet the right people at the right time. We've been able to develop Astria Studios from our goal of making 2 movies back to back in a horror genre to now we're looking at funding, multiple projects a year. And we're looking at projects right now with some huge talent. Really well-known big name actors. We're looking at projects that have, that are budgets anywhere between, $5-10 million for the local stuff to things that we're doing for 40 and 50 million. And these are projects that we're coming out there because the way that we're able to develop this tax strategy first, but also to make it a win-win for investors as well. And so that's what I'll share here is kind of go into the meat of this.
Yeah, break that down, please.
Okay. So the basics to it is all in this first code, which is IRC 181. So 181 is a specific code that is designed by Congress back in early 2000s to help bring productions back to the United States. Okay. So if you remember, Hollywood, golden age of Hollywood was in the 50s all the way up to about the 90s. So for 40 years, everything was made in Hollywood. What happened is after that, they realized that the production cost of doing film here was getting out of control. And it was cheaper and as effective to go and do films overseas. The big one was Canada. Now, Canada, back in the late 90s, they developed a tax incentive that I believe was about 30%. So whatever money you spent in Canada, you can get 30% back from the federal government. This is 20 plus years ago, okay? So Congress, in order to try to find a way to try to bring productions back here, they came up with IRC 181. At its heart, it's a jobs bill. It's designed to bring people and jobs back to the United States, particularly in film. And so what they do is they allow for a 1-to-1 match. Whatever money you're able to put into a project that is at least 70% of the expenses are done in the United States, you can get that money off your taxes. It's a 1-to-1 write-off, okay? People have been using this for years. Over 20 years, it's been used very well. What we do is a modified strategy, which makes it even better for our investors. And I'm going to give an analogy here to kind of explain why it's so good for investors. Okay, most people are familiar with, a strategy utilizing a tax code called 179, and that code allows for you to make a purchase like a vehicle, like a Range Rover or a Suburban or a truck for your business as an expense and write it off. Okay. When you do that, most people will do it by putting down a down payment. You're not going to go there and spend, $100,000 of cash. Usually, some people will, most people don't. Mm-hmm. But 20% down, and you finance the last 80%. Yep. But what if I told you this? What if I said that you went out there and you went to purchase that vehicle? Let's just say it's a Suburban. You're going to buy a Suburban, okay? And you're going to use it for business and all this stuff here. And you walk in, instead of putting 100% down, $100,000 down, you put your $20,000 down. But then I say the state of Arizona is going to take care of the other 80%. Would that not be a great deal that you can write off the entire $100,000 that you put for buying that, which is a legal tax strategy you can use? But you only put 20% down, and the remainder of that, you don't have to pay out of your pocket. So that is how film can work. And what we do is we utilize specific ways of incentives that other places have, and utilizing sales strategies to basically make it where you can put down a down payment for a project, utilize the 181 code, and then write off 100% instead of just putting down 20. Okay, or 25. It's in that range, but we'll just use this for flat numbers. Mm-hmm. Okay, so there's a couple things that are really important for people who are not familiar with film to understand. Okay, the first one is where you film matters. There's a reason why Arizona doesn't have a lot of feature films. There's a reason why it's a commercial state and other stuff. There's a lot of things that are involved with it.
No, we don't know of or think of.
So I know a lot of people may know this, but California obviously is a big state. New York's a big state to film in. A lot of people for Georgia. Right? I'm sure you've heard that before. Like, hey, a lot of people are filming.
Well, from you.
But yeah, a lot of films are done in Georgia. Marvel did most of their films in Atlanta or around there. There's a lot of places. The reason being is that Georgia has a tax incentive of 30%. Okay. Oklahoma is one that we love. Oklahoma, we can use the state tax rebate of 30%. You can use a city and a county to help to push that up to closer to 40%. What that means, if we spend $10 million in Oklahoma, we'll get almost a $4 million check 6 weeks after we finish production.
You hearing this, Justin?
So this stuff is massive for our investors because number one, we're basically saying that any money that comes into production will cover that amount that you're putting on to offset your taxes. So a person comes in and say, hey, it's a $10 million film. Can you give us $2 million? Put $2 million into a film. And then what you're doing is you're saying we're going to have basically you're going to write a promissory note, which is legal, that you're going to pay the remainder $8 million. Okay, but that $8 million is not made like you would do to the bank where you're making a monthly payment. Mm-hmm. It's basically held, and the money that comes in from the state tax incentive will go against that. Number two, based on your director, your genre, and your lead actors, you can utilize what's called foreign pre-sales. Okay, how foreign pre-sales works is that if you've ever looked up a movie and about how much money it's made, you'll notice that they always break it down into domestic and international. And so to combine, it's a global box office. Productions and films are paid differently, whether it's done in a movie theater here in the United States or in Canada, they're considered the same. Or if it's done in Europe, Africa, Asia, whatever they do, there's different ways that they cover that. Mm-hmm. There's foreign groups that basically authorize and try to come in here and take over the rights to distribute your film overseas with international markets, and they will give you an upfront amount. So what they do is they will base that off of who's in the film, what genre it is, all those different things. They come up with a number. And what they typically will do is they'll go through and they'll say, okay, we project this $10 million film that you're making to make $15 million internationally. So what we'll do is we'll offer you $7.5 million up front. So we'll get that $7.5 million, and that will be our pre-sale guarantee. So with that, with the state tax incentive, we already covered the budget of the film. Okay, so there's no loss there. So that is how we basically allow them to get, number one, a big tax break. But number two, this is still an investment. So when you put a amount of money into the project, let's say you put that $2 million in, one of the things that we do is we develop these projects with the right people with the low enough budget that we can guarantee based on the pre-sale value, the state tax incentive, and then leaving open domestic distribution, that we can be able to at least get our investors 120% back. So we call that their money back plus a premium, okay? So what other investment can you do out there where you can put 20% down, get a 4.5, 5 to 1 write-off on your taxes, and then still be able to make that money you put down back plus a premium? And if that film goes even better, what we do is they're also on the equity side. They hold an equity position on what we call the waterfall. Mm-hmm. And so what the waterfall is in film terms basically means after all debts and everyone else has been paid, so marketing costs, theatrical costs, all that stuff there, anything after that, which is pure profit, you still have stakes in that. So our investors will make that. So if that movie ends up, we make it for $10 million, but it ends up making $200 million, then they're still making money year after year after year as that film continues to get licensed and continues to get watched.
Or brought back later in Netflix or those places.
And that's exactly the idea. Because here's one thing I like to ask people is like, do you ever sit down and turn on Netflix and watch a movie that was made 20, 30 years ago? Mm-hmm. Good example is Jurassic Park. One of my favorites. I love watching that with my kids. And I remember the magic when I watched it originally as a kid. And that's one of the films like I love. And I try to go back and try to, find movies that matter to me. And that's the stuff that gives me inspiration for projects that we do. But regardless of that, we can watch that today on Netflix or Hulu or Amazon, whatever it may be.
For a specific time.
For a specific time. What they do is they license that. When they license it, they're paying a set amount for the rights to put that on their platform for a period of time. And that will continue to happen for year after year after year. That's the benefit of having these projects. So we basically are saying you're going to have all these benefits of the tax benefits because of the way we develop it. In addition to that, you also have the back end. And I think this is one thing that I do want to make, kind of make clear. And I'm going to kind of give another example. Okay. So I had a lot of people say, film is so risky and all that stuff. Yeah. If you do it the old way, because the old way is pretty much this. You're basically like most people, especially in Arizona, they want to make a movie. They don't know anything about business. They don't know anything whatever, but they have a passion and a desire for a film. They may work on that film. They may write a great script. Who knows? Most of the time, they're not going to go out there and have it, have people oversee and do coverage. That's what we do. We have professionals who go through every script we have, and we give it coverage. We give it scores and grades. Specific grades mean this is a film that could make money and be produced, which is good enough for us. We may not be something we love, but if this project still grades out and it's in a genre that people still watch, then we're looking at potentially picking up that project. So regardless, people go out there and they'll say, "Hey, I have a great movie idea, and I want people to help me to make it." And they'll go to friends, and they'll go to family, and they'll go to dentists, they'll go to doctors, and they'll say, "Hey, do you trust and believe in me enough that you can give me $1,000? $1,000 share." They ask for a specific number, and then what they're banking the end guarantee is that eventually someone will like this movie so much they'll pick it up and it'll make money. Then I can give you your money back. That most likely never happens. There are so many films, especially independent films, which are made, which are never distributed. And so what we focus on is projects that, with our relationships that we have, that we're able to make that we know are going to have distribution. That's the only way a film makes money. Well, two ways. Number one, it has to be made. You have great ideas, but if you don't make the film, it doesn't make money. Okay. So I'm going to use an example of an investor. Okay. Let's say that I personally have been very successful this year, and that my taxable income after everything else I have that I'm able to write off, is $5 million. Now that $5 million, that lands me in a bracket where I have to pay 40% of taxes. Okay. So that means $2 million of that $5 million is going to the government. Okay. That leaves me with $3 million. Let's just say that my overall costs, let's say that my lifestyle, my house, the trips I do, all this other stuff that's not really needed, but these are stuff that I just kind of hand, is $1 million. But I have $2 million left over that allows me to invest. So I'll have that $2 million that I put out there in projects, and I'll invest in real estate. I'll invest in other, stocks, whatever it may be. It doesn't matter. One of the issues that we're having is people don't understand when we say investing in film, give us this amount of money here. They think it's coming off of that $2 million that they have to invest. And what we really are doing, we're taking off the $2 million, which is going to go to the government. We're basically saying if you put $1 million, we can match that against the 5, which means your taxable income is reduced as close to zero as we possibly can. Okay.
That's a big one.
With that, you now have $1 extra $1 million that you didn't have before. You can then take that $1 million and you can put that into other investments. So what is that? That's the time value of money. If you have money that you normally would not have, that's found money. You're allowed to put that into other things that you feel, businesses, other types of stuff, and help to grow that money over the years. Okay. Now the average film takes 3 years to make. So let's say they invest in that project. We're starting the process. We have it here. We get to post-production. We're working with distribution, and it's been 2 or 3 years. Well, you got that tax saving benefit for 2 to 3 years. Okay. You put $1 million into it.
Are you following, Justin?
Yes.
At the end of that $1 million you put into that film, though, once that film is made, that you get that money back plus $200,000. And then you had those 3 years of those tax savings that you had, and you can turn back around and reinvest that in other projects. And every single year, we retain about 95% of our investors. We have a partner who's been doing this for about 5 years now. And this is a guy who came up with this strategy, and he is well known in the industry. I won't really share much about him, on here, but he came up with this whole strategy. He's the one who kind of, oversees it, and he works with a large group of CPAs, and he works with a large group of tax attorneys. And one of the best things about this, and this is one thing where a lot of people may be skeptical, like this seems way too good to be true. One thing that we say is every single transaction we do, we have one of the top 5 tax firms in the world will have one of their attorneys have an opinion letter saying that this is legit. You cannot buy that from other people if it's a scam. If it was not real and not legit, you would not have a tax attorney basically saying, I will take away the liability from the client and put that on myself. Every single one of our projects, we have that for every transaction. Now, the average project we'll get anywhere between 2 to maybe 12 investors for it. Each one of those gets their own transaction. Okay. Now, I hope that makes sense. I hope all that's up there. And there's a lot of ways you can reach out and sit down. And I know one thing we've talked about with you, Christina, is having a presentation we can do with you. I think that'd be fantastic. I'd love to have that where we can have some of our like CPAs and people who actually understand this in a way that's higher than someone like me who like, hey, that guy was a chiropractor only a few years ago, I feel very blessed that I've gotten to where I am today. But a lot of it comes from seeing opportunity, understanding what we have, and then scaling. And I think that when you're a business owner, that always goes down to what you want to do. Is you want to be able to look at it and say, I see the value of what I can do. I see I can bring in people and do this, and I can scale that to make it a massive business. And that's what everyone wants to do. I would love to be able to have that one day be Astria Studios, to be to the point where we're as well known as Universal or Disney or some of these other major companies that are in production. But right now, we're simply focusing on every single film that we have and every investor and making sure that they're taken care of. And that's what our first priority is, always to make sure all of our projects, we make sure the investor, after debt is covered, their first position. They're paid before anyone else is paid. And then after that, it opens a waterfall where everyone shares in the profits.
Has there been a movie out there where it's like they didn't plan on it to like go crazy and it just went crazy?
Absolutely. It happens all the time. There's so many films out there. You're going to see more of the other way around. And these are projects that go out there and they put a lot of money into it and they believe it's going to be great, and then it crashes. Okay. Those typically are studio films where they end up having bloated budgets. And one of the things that I don't personally do, but it's my partner who's very good at it, he will get projects, and the people that we partner with are WME, CAA, and UTA. Those are the three largest talent agencies in the United States. They work with us by referring to us their projects from their talent. So they may be representing directors, they may be representing producers, and they may be representing actors who are leads, who have a pet project they really want to get done. They'll contact us and say, hey, we have this project here that only needs equity. Would you be able to take a look at this and see if this works with your investors? And so over the years, the last couple of years, we've been really pushing this and developing and growing this here. We've been able to have quite a big bandwidth, that we have great relationships from some of the studios and some of the other groups that are sending us these projects. And of those, right now, we're rejecting about 90% of the projects that are sent to us.
And is that your way of protecting the investors? You're not just picking up like whatever random film?
I'm going to give you a little bit of an example, and I'm going to try not to use specific names because I don't want to, use this for it's a project that has not been announced yet, and I don't know if it will be or not, but regardless, there was a project that came from one of my favorite actors. And I was so excited when we saw this project. My partner was sending it to me, and we're talking about it, and we put it through, and I actually read it, and I was like, this is a great script. I love it. But the budget was about $12.5 million. And so we said, okay, we got to make sure that this talented lead actor who we love, who's been involved in so many great projects that I've watched, and I just think is a fantastic actor, great lead. We put it through our system. And when we came back, the numbers were much, much lower than we expected. And we don't know why. We don't really understand why certain actors have better pre-sale value than others. That's why we have a third party that goes over that stuff. So even with all that information we had, and we put it through the system, it was funny because the first time we did it with one of our third party and they shared that, I was like, there's no way those numbers are correct. And I said, hey, Kevin, can we ask them to run them again? And they did. We used a second third party, and they double checked it, and the numbers were off by 500,000. But still way too low. And so we had to pass on it. And I think that's one thing that we do. Like even projects that we look at, read, we love it, the great script. If the budget is too high for where you're filming and who you have with it, it doesn't work for our investors. And so we have a fiduciary responsibility to make sure that our investors are always taken care of first and foremost.
Of course, I have several questions. Like, are there other companies like you out there? Start with that. Obviously, money's hard. It's not like you pick it up on the ground or pick it off the tree, you work for it, right? So obviously the reservation is there of, if this is real, why is it that people don't know about it? Which are we the lucky ones who learn about it? And then, I have more questions, but start with the first one I asked. Like, are there other companies out there?
Yeah, there are other companies that utilize 181. I think that there's a few differences. The biggest one is from what I understand, this is the thing, is when we're talking to some productions on projects that we like, they comp out, they work really well. They come to us and said, hey, we have another company that can provide 181. But the big difference that we have, and one thing that we don't back down from, is we need to make sure our investors are taken care of. And so I'll give you an example. We had a project that was going to be filming in New Mexico, and this is about a month ago. And we were contacted about this. We were super excited. We went through, it has one of my all-time favorite actors that's involved with it. He's been around since the late 80s, and he's so talented and so good. And he came on such a small budget, and that's one of the reasons why it comped out so well. But they didn't want us to put a bond on the project. And the completion bond basically means if an act of God or something happens and the budget runs out of money, then we have a third-party insurance company that will come in and finish the film. And that's just insurance.
And you do that on
every project that we do. Yeah, it's one of our guarantees to make sure our investors are taken care of. They had another group that did 181 that didn't offer that. They said we don't have to do it. And they were like, hey, we'll take second or third position behind the producers and the lead and stuff. So what that meant to us was that our investors were not guaranteed to make their money back. And so because of that, we said this is the way we do it. We do it as a way because we would like to keep our retention rate high. We would like to keep our investors in year after year after year because we plan to grow and add additional people every year to grow our bandwidth and keep them. And the worst way you can do that is by losing their money. And if we do that, we're not going to last long. Mm-hmm. And there's another company that the guy who invented this system he was working with before, and once again, I will not share names here. He was working with them before, but the same issue happened, that the person who oversaw the 181 stuff, he put himself in first position. So he made sure he got paid, and he didn't care about the investors, and investors lost big money. And because of that, they all left. And so this guy basically went from the top of the world to nothing. And that's something that we say. And when we brought our plan with this gentleman who kind of came up with a system here and has been working for a long time in this, he basically was like, this is the way it should have been done in the first place. So yes, other people have a similar type of strategy. It's usually only for independent film, and it's only a select few who understand it, because I guess the biggest issue always goes down to when you understand taxes, when you understand business, you're usually not a creative. The people who are involved in Hollywood are creative people, artists, and they don't look into things in a business world. They look at things as an art world. And so they look at it as my art is the prettiest art of all the art, and therefore my movie is going to be great. But there's no guarantee. They don't understand hard numbers. They don't understand the value of who you bring in. So with us, we try to hire the right artists, or hire the right directors, hire the right actors, let them do their job, but let us handle the business side. And if we do it the right way, which we actively put it on every single time we have guarantees on these things, then we make sure our investors are taken care of. And for us, that matters more than anything else.
Well, I wrote some questions down because I know we're running out of time, but I wrote some questions down because obviously, like, if this is, the strategy and a tool for others, I want them to know about it, look into it, learn about it, and essentially be a part of it, right? If it's going to help them. But I have some basic questions too, like, what is the difference between like those major box office and then independent films? Because I don't know about you guys, but I've seen some really good independent films. I wish I could remember titles, but I've seen some that's just like, wow, so good. But you don't know about them.
That's a great question.
There's a whole lot of other movies now just on the streaming platforms.
So that's a great question. I think a lot of it is the model, and I'll be a little bit biased here, is that I believe that when it's done through independent filmmakers, is there's a little bit more heart, a little bit more soul that's put into these types of projects. And because sometimes these projects are stuff where people are working on them for a decade, and it's their entire life and existence is focused on getting this story out. And if it's a project that has that, it tends to resonate more with people. It's a better story. Okay. The difference between that and obviously studio produced films is studio produced films are basically they have almost unlimited money. Okay. And I'm going to give you a couple examples here. Okay. Recently there was a film that came out, and I'm going to share the name for this one. This one was Gladiator 2. And a lot of people watch Gladiator, love Gladiator, and I obviously the distribution, the team the studio that made that was looking at it and saying, you know what we should go back from the 20 years ago when we made this great film, which made us so much money, was a classic, and everyone loves it, and let's make a new one. And so originally they came out and said, okay, we're going to make this film, we're going to give it a budget for $180 million. Okay, so number one, their budgets are through the roof. Okay, and number two, they don't care if they go over. Okay, because in their minds, these studios have unlimited funds because they're such large businesses and conglomerates that they have so much other assets that they can pull off from. And I'm going to give you an example of that in a second, okay? So Gladiator 2 ended up having so many issues with all the strikes and all the stuff that was going on there that it was delayed. And that budget ended up moving up to 320 to 340 is the estimate. They never actually gave a specific number with it.
It's crazy numbers.
So it was twice as expensive as they originally said. But with a studio produced film, we'll just pull money from elsewhere. Okay. Those are the only projects that studios are still doing, are massive $100+ million projects. Okay. But they're still acquiring projects that are not, that are lower budget. And the difference between that is a lot of times you'll see a project on, like, say, Netflix. Netflix produces maybe 1% of the content. They have large ones like Stranger Things, the big one. But majority of the stuff, even it says Netflix originals, are simply ones that they acquire. They purchase that, they take it on there, they slap their logo on it, and they say it's a Netflix original. So
they like white label of.
Exactly.
Wow.
And so the producers are happy because they get paid very well.
That's crazy. I did not know that.
Streamers.
It's crazy. It's like a whole niche, you know.
And so I'm going to give you another example to go back to that when I mentioned before. I'm like, one of the major issues that we have is that studios' budgets are so bloated right now. And if they make a film that bombs, they will find other ways to kind of still keep it because they have to report their numbers back to the shareholders. I'm going to give you a little example here and talk about this, okay? Recently, we had a couple of big bombs through Disney, okay? One of the big ones was Snow White. Snow White was produced for a massive amount of money. They kept going back and redoing it and had a lot of extra cost sunk into this. And because of that, when it came out, it was panned so bad and it did so bad. They ended up losing, I believe the number was $180 to $200 million that they had. Most, if it was an independent studio who'd made that and lost $200 million, they're going bankrupt. We're going out of business. So we can't do that. We have to be smart with the projects that we pick up, okay? But what did Disney do? They had lost money on that. They lost money on some of the Marvel films that they're doing. I believe it was Eternals, I think came out around the same time. And Eternals also lost over $100 million. They had multiple bombs in a row. And so for the first time, I believe, and this is, maybe I shouldn't say this is, for real, but I remember hearing this, and it may or may not be true with it's the first time it happened, but they raised ticket prices at Disney theme parks twice in the same calendar year, which had not happened before. Mm-hmm. So when
already expensive.
Exactly. And when these companies go out there and they have these studio produced projects and they realize that they're not getting a return, they still have to help their shareholders believe the value's there. So they have to find other ways to do it. Okay. Amazon had a similar thing with their Rings of Power. That was, if you look it up, that was $1 billion in 2 seasons they spent producing that.
Excuse me?
The Tolkien estate, they put a lot of money. A lot of that, I'll be honest, a lot of that $1 billion was spent in getting the rights to be able to do that. Okay. Now the stories were not from the Silmarillion and they were not from the Lord of the Rings. They were from the appendixes. And so they were able to take these stories that took place in between and they made these studio produced projects. Well, even Amazon is cutting back on their money. They're like one of the largest companies in the world with so much money. Mm-hmm. And they looked at it and said, we can't keep spending money on these humongous cost, studio produced projects that don't bring us a return. So they started cutting back. Apple started cutting back. All these other studios started cutting back again. So that's the difference there. Independent film is we go out there and we have to make a project that is viable. If we make a project that's viable, we can sell it and we can do it again. Mm-hmm. But if you go out there and you have studio money, you can do whatever you want with that. Because the producers, they're getting paid a percentage of whatever the budget is. So they have incentive to make the budget more expensive. So to them, say, hey, we can make a movie for $100 million or we can make it for $150 million or $150 million. But the extra amount they make from that is, let's see, an extra $4.5 million.
Has there been do you guys know, has there been a movie where they spent nothing, but it made so much money? There has to be.
A couple examples.
Rocky was only made, I think, on $1 million.
It was, well, even more than that is there's 2 very, very big ones that have happened. And number one is, what's it called? The Blair Witch Project.
Oh,
and then
gosh.
Number 2 that I can think off the top of my head.
Is that, Blair Witch was just it
was like a found film.
Yeah, yeah.
It actually started the found footage genre.
Right. And how much did they spend and how much did it make?
They spent $100,000.
And then what did it make?
$240 million at the box office.
There you go. And what was the other one?
So the other one is even cheaper than that, and that was Paranormal Activities, the first one.
Oh my God.
I think it was $60,000 is what the total budget
And
was.
then they made?
And that made over $100 million. So,
that's crazy.
Yeah, so there's plenty of movies that can, But when we're looking at them from a business perspective, you cannot take anomalies like that into account.
Correct.
You have to go off of a bell curve. And that's one thing that we do at Astria Studios is we look at these things, we evaluate them, and we basically say, okay, it's funny because we don't even go off of the middle of the road estimate. We go off the conservative numbers. And as
That's
a way
fair.
to specifically make sure our investors are protected.
So I'm going to say, because there's so many movies, you can't help but think like, yeah, there has to be some strategy, tax shelters built in this, because there's just, you never stop making movies, right? But it's just that a few people who are aware of this, which that's what he's trying to educate us and share with us. But without naming the director or a movie, there's movies out there that continue to make crazy amounts of money, and it's the stupidest movie, but somehow it's like a specific, genre, and they know how to continue to make the movie. But it's pretty dumb. But yet they keep making it. So I'm like, there has to be something.
Yeah, there's the projects out there. And I think I'll give you an example, or at least share what I've learned in this industry is the major genre that
I'm
can
just saying, they have to be making these
terrible
movies.
quality that can still make money is horror. And you look at stuff like Sharknado. Like, I mean, I would love to have been in the room listening to a guy pitch a story of, hey, imagine if we mixed a tornado and had sharks biting people's heads off on the beach. And they're chasing down the lead characters as they're running away from it. And yet it did so well. They made 10 sequels or whatever. Maybe.
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't know what you're talking about, but
that.
now I got to go look. But when you invest in film, is there like a minute? The amounts vary. And then that's where you come in and you can talk to them about it. But
our major strategies that we work with is we work with with potential people who are interested in what we do, who are looking for not only the tax savings, but can utilize the savings to then invest immediately into more things. So it's, the time value of money, once again, utilizing that strategy, and then have the returns on the back end. And all these different things here are just other strategies for people. In fact, majority of the people, I'll even say close to 100% of our investors that we work with, it's probably about 95, 98, somewhere in that range. They have never done film before. And yet they come back year after year after year because it makes sense for them. And it's a way for them to grow their money in a way that utilizes what is on the tax books. Now, the tax book as right now, U.S. tax code is massive, and most people only know a small fraction of it as CPAs
or nothing.
Well, I hope the CPAs know a little
The
bit.
CPAs, yes, and we depend on them.
The biggest one there is most people don't understand that. So what our CPAs do is they work with our client CPAs. And they simply say, we'll just handle the 181, we'll handle this transaction away. And then what they do is, as part of them putting their money in there, they have 5 years of the K1s done through our CPAs. And they go back to theirs. They don't steal clients. They don't do anything else. They only do this strategy. And they work with other people who want to utilize this strategy as one strategy they use in their book. Now, is there a minimum? Not really. It really goes down to individual people. If it makes sense for you, it makes sense for you. And I can't really share what that would be for you. It depends on your state.
Sure.
Depends on how much taxes you pay already. And it depends on what you're looking for write-offs. So you may have other strategies where you say, hey, I end up grossing $10 million a year, but I only end up paying $5,000 of taxes because I have so many other things that happen. But what we're saying is, if you happen
Just
to have
another
a lot,
avenue.
it's another avenue. Now, the cool thing is, there's still taxes that are paid on this. As one of the things that we do is that our investors come in and with that 120% and the value they get there, we also have what's called a tax impound account. So every single time the film makes money, a percentage of that goes into the account, and then with the K1s that our CPAs will file for them, they'll make sure that the money for their taxes are coming out of that impound account, so they never see it. And that's money that basically is made by the film paying your taxes. So when you get that K1 done, it doesn't add or change your current taxes down the road. So all these things are basically done to the fact where it's not a way to cheat the IRS. It's written in the tax code, and we still pay taxes on it, just in a different way. And we push those taxes off for future years.
So for the people who invest right? What are the other benefits outside of taxes that this provides?
That's a great question. And that's something I probably should have shared a little earlier, but, not everyone qualifies for this, but there's a couple things that we do allow as well. Okay. So let's say a project, we need $5 million of equity. Okay. The standard for credits, for producer credits, executive producer credit, for investors is 20% of the equity. So if you as an investor come in on a project and you put 20% of equity into that film, then you'll be able to have a credit on the film as an executive producer.
So that's what that big thing is.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
But
I'm glad you see that. That's an extra, that's just a bonus that we offer.
so now when you're paying attention and you see that thing, so I guess for me, I always thought they created the film, but you're saying that's the financial.
Without the financial money, the movie would never be made.
Right.
That's what a producer does. So they're specifically credited as an executive producer on there. Okay. There's a few other benefits. Okay. Number two is for projects that Astria produces itself. If you're one of our investors for a film, we can even have you on set and if you want, have a cameo appearance in the background. Okay. So if you want to have a chance to be on a movie and, maybe be, I think one of the scenes we're talking about with one of our films we're doing here is there's going to be a scene at a restaurant. And we're looking at having some of our investors and other people involved to be just patrons of the restaurant. You're having a dinner, you're doing this stuff when they have that, and you're in the background scene as the lead actors are having their conversation.
I've always wanted to be just killed on camera.
Like if you cover a full film, I can make that happen.
Justin. Oh my God.
In a horror film,
no one
great.
ever.
And then the last thing we do, in addition to those things as well, is we can offer 2 tickets for the red carpet premiere as well for investors.
And every film has that.
Yeah, pretty much every film. And that sometimes it's going to be in LA, sometimes it's going to be New York, sometimes it's going to be at Venice or whatever it may be, wherever it's premiering and where is considered the premiere where they're going to have everyone. This is not going to be like the viewing where the producers and the director look over the cut and finalize it. This is the one where you're dressed up in tuxedos and gowns and on the red carpet and the paparazzi are there. Our investors do get to be involved with that as well.
Is there a floor for the investing?
So standard rate is at least 20% of equity for those additional benefits.
Okay.
Anything below that, we don't guarantee that, but for some of our projects, we wouldn't have a problem doing that.
So it just depends on the size of the project.
But specifically speaking, for the credits, for the red carpet, and for opportunity to still have a cameo, it's usually about 20% of whatever the equity need is for the film.
Gotcha.
So
How interesting, right? Like we don't know any of this.
This is awesome.
So, but for those who might think like this is too good to be true, you're saying that they can have their own CPA talk to have their people talk to your people.
Yeah, that's honestly, we'd love to do the connection. And I think that's one thing is, we've talked with you as well. I think that you're very well known in the industry. You have a lot of people. The biggest thing goes down to is every single person who would qualify for a strategy like this, they already have people they trust. They have a CPA, they have a financial planner, people like that. And I'll be honest, majority of them have never heard of this before. Okay. They are looking at it and they've been told that film is a terrible investment. And they're right. When it's your nephew who's trying to put his film out and asking for $100,000 to make a student film. Right. That's never going to make you money. But the way that we do it is different. And we will sit down, we can show you hard numbers, we can show you spreadsheets, we can show you the code as it's written, and you can talk with our CPAs who are more than happy to explain this to yours. And when we do that, the number one referrers for clients into our projects are CPAs. Once they understand the benefit for their clients, they refer their clients to us. This doesn't work if the CPA or the financial planner doesn't talk to us though, because you're not going to understand this if you're just trying to figure it out on your own.
Right.
But once you have that, and this is the biggest thing I always say is a lot of people say, yeah, I'm really interested in this. I'm going to talk to my financial planner or whatever, let them decide on this. And they're looking at like, well, I'm the expert. Why are you trying to tell me what to do? But the way that I usually tell clients, I say, this is what you tell them. You say, I'm doing this. I need you to learn how to do this with me or I'll go somewhere else. Because honestly, if this is a project you want to do, if you feel like you want to be involved with this stuff, you see the benefits, but you want to trust someone to take you with you, then they need to trust you as well. And they should have that opportunity to come and sit. And we will bring whoever we need to make sure that they're assured the way that we do this. But number one, once again, as I say, is look at that planning I shared before. This is not saying that normally I put in X amount of money every year into investing. We're not touching that money. We're touching the money that you normally put every year into taxes. How would you rather take your tax money and have it work for you and still give you a ton of opportunity to work in the film industry. For someone who can say, hey, you know what? I'm a producer. I'm a Hollywood producer.
On what is it?
IMDb.
What?
IMDb.
There you go.
Yes, you can look me up, Jesse Fox on IMDb. And I'm listed as a producer, a writer, and an actor on there.
I will say, since I've known you for a while, before this, you were so big in film already that even the kids are involved, where they've been in movies. I've had the opportunity to sponsor something small. And I was supposed to be in the movie, but I was out of town. It would have been hilarious because what was my role?
I don't even remember.
You have to say it. It was so funny because it was like, it was just, I'll have to, I'm like, oh, okay, yeah. But anyway, and then hopefully to those listening to this, please get a hold of Doc to me forever. And yeah, learn about this. Have your CPA contact theirs and see if this is something that would be beneficial to you and tell them how to get a hold of you.
Yeah, you can always reach out to me through my email. My email that I utilize is my name, Jesse, Jesse, at my company, astriastudios.com. So it's ASTRIASTUDIOS.com. Also, feel free to text me. I won't say call because sometimes it's difficult to have that, but my number is 623-703-7343. And if you want to send a text and just say, hey, shout out to Christina on there and let them know, because like I said, we do want to have a lot of working relationship with her and involve her in a lot more of these things here. So if you do have a chance and you want to have more information about that, just say you heard about it from here. Put that in the email or the text or email, either one, and I'll make sure that I include her on that and let her know.
But before we leave though, like actually talk to the camera and say like, because I want to really like hit it. Who needs to call you about this? What bracket or what, you know what I mean?
Well, that's great. Okay, so traditionally speaking, the people who would benefit most from this are those who are looking at about $500,000 a year of taxable income that they're looking to write off on an annual basis. So, or more. Anything below that, it gets kind of dicey if it makes sense because there are fees associated with it, et cetera, as part of bringing in attorneys, CPAs, et cetera. Okay, but if you make at least $500,000 a year or above, and you're a taxable income bracket, we would love to talk to you. And there's so many different ways we can help involve you with this, and you have a chance to kind of be a part of this as we continue to grow.
Well, there you go. You heard it at Connect with Christina. Till next time, see you in the movies. Bye.